People who study or have an interest in ancient Egypt might be familiar with the name Dorothy Louise Eady. This 20th century Egyptologist claimed to be the reincarnation of an Isis priestess, and she seemed to have the first-hand experience to back up her claims. She even knew about some secret details that were never revealed. But before we dive into that story, my name is Mr Storytell, and if you are a fan of true crime, horror, and other mysterious stories, this is going to be your new favorite channel. We upload on here twice a week, so please subscribe to the channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a single upload. Alright, now let's get into our story. On January 16th, 1904, Dorothy Eady was born to Irish parents. She was a typical child up until the year 1907, when she was involved in a terrible accident. Dorothy, then 3 years old, tried running up the stairs, but fell from the second floor. Almost immediately, she lost consciousness. Her parents called a local doctor, but when he came, he wasn't able to assist and could only declare that she had passed away. Nevertheless, amazingly, when the doctor returned to the house an hour later and entered Dorothy's room, he discovered that the girl was still alive and in good health. After that, Dorothy started having these incredible dreams about a strange structure with snow-white columns and a beautiful garden. Somewhere within the depths of the gardens was a rectangular lake filled with lotuses. The girl herself was racked with yearning for her own home, but she couldn't place the location of this home. This tormented her. When Dorothy was 4 years old, she took her parents to the British Museum. After entering the Egyptian Hall, she experienced a reawakening of memories from a previous life. She was sure that she could remember her previous life and that she was born in a different life. On the other side of the ocean, in the land of the pharaohs in Egypt. She was certain of this. Dorothy not only recalled her previous life, but remembered some incredible details from the time when she served as an Egyptian priestess. She claimed that her name was Bentreshed and that she was 14 years old when she lived in the holy city of Abydos, Egypt. Her mother was a vegetable vendor and her father a common soldier, and she was an apprentice virgin priestess. She was a member of the court of the pharaoh Sety, where she worked and lived. Dorothy started reading and writing at the age of 5 and quickly became very interested in anything to do with the history of ancient Egypt. Dorothy had met the well-known Egyptologist, archaeologist, and Orientalist, Sir Ernest Alfred Thompson Wallace Budge, by the age of 10. He started teaching her the ancient language, and despite how impressed he was with the abilities of his new student in mastering this ancient, long-lost language, he continued teaching her. Dorothy moved to Egypt in 1932 to be with her husband, Aman Abdel Magid, an Egyptian student that she met in England. They had been married for 4 years at this point. She disembarked the ship as it docked in Egypt, knelt down, and planted a passionate kiss on the land, declaring that Egypt would be her permanent home. The couple eventually tied the knot, but it was short-lived, lasting only 2 years. Despite the fact that during this time the couple had a son who Dorothy referred to as Sety. Because of this, Dorothy Eady was given the nickname Omm Sety, which literally translates to Mother of Sety. Dorothy's efforts to remember her previous life spanned over years, as she attempted to piece together a mystery that dated back thousands of years. That she was the reincarnation of Bentreshed. She came to the realization that in a previous life, she had been a young lady by the name of Bentreshed. She had begun her upbringing at the Temple of Sety when she was just 3 years old. She claimed that she had many experiences with a spirit named Hor-Ra, who guided her through the process of deciphering the mysteries from her past life. Her father, a soldier, was unable to take care of the child after the death of her mother, a modest fruit seller, so he abandoned her at the temple. During the course of her life, she worked at the temple of Abydos, eventually becoming a priestess and a consecrated virgin. There, she crossed paths with Pharaoh Sety I, and eventually the two of them fell in love. Young Bentreshed became pregnant because of her affair with the Pharaoh Sety. However, the fate of the relationship did not have a happy ending in store for the participant. In 1956, Dorothy made the move to Abydos, where she became known as Omm Sety. It was during her time in Abydos that she encountered many challenges that put her knowledge and her stories to the test. The head of the Antiquities Department at the Temple of Seti decided to put Dorothy through a series of mental and physical tests so that he could establish beyond a reasonable doubt that she had in fact lived in Egypt all those years ago. She was instructed to stand in the vicinity of a specific wall painting when the room was almost entirely dark. There, the head of the Antiquities Department gave her instructions to identify them based on recollections she had from a previous life. The responses were very fascinating to read. It's fascinating to note that the paintings and markings that Dorothy Eady saw had never been seen by anybody else in the world. They had not been published in any Egyptian publication, so it was impossible for anyone to have seen them. Not only did she know the answers to all of the questions, but she also told the head of antiquities things that they hadn't even found yet. Her tale gained more notoriety, and she ended up assisting in archaeological digs and studies in Egypt. She was able to translate works of art that not even the most skilled archaeologists could. Archaeologists who were working at Abydos benefited from working with Dorothy because she could communicate with them. According to a biography called Omm Sety's Egypt, she was rumored to have made the claim at one point to know the location of the tomb of Nefertiti, because she had had a conversation with a pharaoh in her previous life about the location of the tomb. At one time, I did inquire to His Majesty where it was, and he informed me of its location. The response he gave was, "Why do you want to know?" I mentioned that I was interested in having it dug up, but he told me that I was absolutely forbidden to do so. We don't want any more information about his family to be made public. However, he did explain to me where it was located, and that much I can reveal to you. It can be found in the Valley of the Kings and is situated in close proximity to the tomb of Tutankhamun. But it's in a place where nobody would even think to look for it, she laughed. No one would ever consider looking for it. And call it coincidence or not, but in a recent Guardian article, it mentions Tutankhamun's burial chamber may contain door to Nefertiti's tomb. Dorothy once mentioned that in the previous life, when she had the identity of Bentresh, the Temple of Seti had a stunning garden and was surrounded by a forest. At that point in time, there were no gardens to be found anywhere. But then, on a certain day, archaeologists discovered something that they had never found before. A garden. However, this garden in Abydos was not like any other garden you're going to find. This garden was in the exact point that Dorothy said it would be. However, it cannot be denied that she made significant contributions to Egyptology. She had an impressive level of expertise regarding the surrounding ruins and what seemed to be a supernatural understanding of hieroglyphics. She was even featured in a documentary on National Geographic that aired in the same year that she died, 1981. The documentary was titled Egypt, A Quest for Eternity, which is an apt title for someone who believed in reincarnation. Her body was cremated and her remains were buried close to a Coptic temple in Abydos. People in the area remembered her as a fiery woman that possessed expertise of Abydos, ancient Egypt, and the ancient Egyptian language that had never been seen before. Whether or not the skeptics believed her is another story, but the people in the community did without a doubt.